Madam Sobha also has joined. Okay. Good evening, friends. So we are happy to invite you all to this webinar. So this is the fourth webinar, the leadership series. We are happy to present the National Insurance Academy in collaboration with India Insurtech Association is happy to organize this webinar on intelligent automation in health insurance. Friends, we all know that after COVID, the health insurance has gained a lot of importance, and also the artificial intelligence is getting embraced in every type of organization, whether it is insurance company or a healthcare firm or a manufacturing firm. So it's a very interesting topic, the intelligent automation in health insurance. So we have with us the Director of National Insurance Academy, G. Srinivasan sir, and Mr. Raghavendra Pawar, co-founder CoverSelf company, and Mr. Rajasekhar Madireddy, co-founder CoverSelf, and Madam Sobha from India Insurtech. So at this evening, so I'm very happy to introduce my director, G. Srinivasan sir. G. Srinivasan sir has over 40 years of experience in the insurance industry, and he is well known in the industry. Sir has been our director the last 2 years, and we all know that G. Srinivasan sir was one of the longest serving CMD of two of the largest general insurance companies, the New India Insurance Company, as well as the United India Insurance Company in India. And apart from that, SAR has been in the board of many companies, including India Insurance Company in Singapore, Trinidad and Tobago, the New India subsidiary company in West Indies, and Sarah has been there in the board of various corporates and also the Insurance Institute of India and the ICMA, the Institute and Cost and Management Accountant. He is also in the advisory panel of IRDAI, our regulators. Sir, with this brief introduction, I request Director G. Srinivasan sir to give us a welcome address on the theme of the webinar. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Das, for the introduction. First of all, let me take great pleasure in welcoming all the participants to this webinar, the subject of intelligent automation in health insurance. Also have great pleasure in welcoming the speakers, Mr. Rajasekhar and Mr. Raghavendra, co-founders of CoverSelf, for this program. I must also thank the India Insurtech Association, who has been collaborating with us in bringing these knowledge webinars for the market. So I'm extremely grateful to them. The subject intelligent automation in health insurance is very relevant and timely as we are passing through a great pandemic. As you know, the last 1.5 years have been a period of great suffering for the whole world. And India is no exception to that. India, in fact, had a major chunk of the pandemic, especially the second wave, which really saw a lot of people getting hospitalized, a lot of Indian lives getting lost. So we are, probably in a phase of recovering from the pandemic. Hopefully, there are people who are saying that the pandemic is still not over. We need to be very vigilant. So it is, I think the environment has really put a lot of focus on insurance, especially health insurance. If you look at health insurance at this point of time in our country, it's one of the fastest growing lines of business. Even before pandemic, health insurance was growing faster, growing at 20-25% CAGR every year. And from a very low level of almost 10% many years back, it's now almost reached 30% of the total general insurance premium, and it's poised for further growth in the coming years. The pandemic has also created huge awareness. Today, there is really no need for us to go and convince people why health insurance is important. Everyone knows that health insurance is very, very important for them to lead a financially sound life. That is why we see health insurance, especially retail health insurance, is growing at about 25 to 30%, especially in the recent months. And I expect this trend will continue for many more years. But if you look at the spread of health insurance at this point of time, it's not very heartening. The insurance industry covers only about 12% of the population through the commercial health insurance policies, both retail as well as corporate health insurance policies. But the government has come out with a major health insurance intervention, which is the Ayushman Bharat, which covers almost 40% of the people. But these people are people who are below poverty line population, belong to the BPL segment of the Indian population. So there is a vast segment of the Indian population. I always call this as the problem of the middle, a little above the BPL, who have a little bit of affordability, but who have not got into the insurance net for various reasons. Either it is awareness or affordability, or probably trust deficit. People still don't trust insurers. They feel insurers come and take premiums promising the moon, but when it comes to claims, there's always hassles, there's always fine print, there are always difficulties. So whatever be the reason, but I think there is lot of scope, and I'm sure the insurance industry will remove these difficulties, hassles, and make sure that the health insurance really reaches every Indian population, every Indian family in this country, because today India has great medical facilities. There are many parts of the country, many cities where our medical profession can be compared globally to any part of the world. But then it's expensive. Who will finance for this healthcare cost, healthcare protection? In India, almost 60% of the healthcare spending comes out of pocket. There's no insurance, there's nobody else to take this. So I think this has to be changed. So the environment is quite good. I am sure that in a few years, we will have a much deeper penetration as far as health insurance is concerned. So I was talking about the servicing aspect of the trust deficit. One of the challenges is, especially health is a very personalized line of business. In corporate lines of business, even if insurers ask a couple of more questions or pay a little less because of policy conditions or take a little more time, the customer is not too much into difficulties because he's from a corporate setup. There is a lot of financial backing. But in personal lines of business, customer is always extremely concerned if there are some delays in claim, if some unnecessary papers are required, or if some cuts are made in his claim. Maybe it may be due to valid reasons, but then most of the people do not understand the niceties or exclusions in insurance. So that creates a problem. So servicing is very important. Hassle-free servicing, more transparency in telling people what is really covered, what is not covered. I must say that in this regard, the regulator IRDAI has done quite a bit of job. They have tried to standardize some of the exclusions. They also came out with the standard health insurance policy, because in the Indian market there are almost 500 or more counting health insurance policies. Even the most knowledgeable insurance professional will not be able to say which is a good policy, which is not a good policy, because there's so much So the regulator felt that there's need for coming out with a product which is simple, which has their backing, which is customer centric, where people can be really assured that it will take care of their interest to the extent it is possible. So they have come out with that product, and also they came out with two products for the pandemic, Corona Kavach, Corona Rakshak, which actually helped a large number of people to cover their medical expenses for the sufferings due to pandemic. When they had to be hospitalized, these policies really came to their rescue. So the idea is, let us simplify policies, make sure that there is a lot of certainty as to what the customer will get when something happens to him, when he falls sick, and how do we fast track the whole claim settlement process. Cashless is there in this market for almost last 2 decades. But if you look at the percentage of claims being settled through cashless, it's just about 50-55%. So when do we reach 100% cashless? Because that's the time we can really say that the health insurance servicing has reached its ultimate goal. So these are some of the challenges. This is where I feel automation in health insurance makes a lot of difference, brings in a lot of benefits. Today, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cognitive intelligence used in various segments of insurance. And I'm really glad that, CoverSelf, both the co-founders are here, who had extensive experience in US market. I think they have really, come out with some interesting solutions. How do we use artificial intelligence, robotics to, smoothen the claim settlement process, speed up, improve efficiencies, reduce cost of claims processing, and ultimately make the customer happy and comfortable. I think that's the ultimate goal of any Insurtech process which is being put in place. It also helps in compliance, data protection, which is today very important aspect as we speak. The whole world is talking of how do we take care of the privacy of people, protect their data. India is probably still not to the extent of the Western countries in terms of data protection, but we are going there. We are in the right direction. So there are many areas like member enrollment, payment integrity, pricing. So I think there are many areas where Insurtechs can really make a difference to the health insurance segment. Happy that both the professionals are here. Would like to hear them, and I wish the program all the success. Once again, welcome the speakers as well as all the participants. Thank you very much. Das, you are muted.
So, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for sharing the dynamics of the health insurance market in India, but also stressing the importance of the automation in health insurance, the importance of the policy servicing. How do we make the customers happy with a hassle-free the claim settlement service process? Thank you very much for sharing. We are now happy to introduce the speakers today. Mr. Rajasekhar Madireddy, co-founder at CoverSelf. Mr. Rajasekhar has over 12 years of experience, and he is basically a postgraduate in MTech from IIT Madras, and he has worked in the various tech companies. Particularly, he has worked in the health tech companies in the US market, and currently he has really developed this interesting solution, automation in health insurance. And we have with us Mr. Raghavendra Pawar. Mr. Raghavendra has over 15 years experience. He's a domain expert with a specialization in healthcare. He's basically an biochemist and worked in, again, US healthcare and managed a large team of people there. And he was associated with 47 plus hospital chain and also worked in the largest health insurance companies there. So Mr. Raghavendra is also a co-founder at CoverSelf. So both of them are here. We are very happy to have them this evening. Mr. Raghavendra and Rasigar, now over to you. So request you to share your thoughts on the topic of the webinar, the intelligent automation in health insurance. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot, sir, and thanks a lot, Srinivasan, sir. Your introduction is really good. Actually, you made my life easy. I don't have to talk too much now. So I'll just quickly go to my deck and start giving what is the current state in India health insurance and what we're trying to do. So particularly, I would not go into AI, ML or NLP or computer vision, not much, but the need of the hour is the standardization and capturing data, which is completely not available in Indian market, which is the reason behind how US healthcare is processing 100% claims auto adjudication. So if we do not generate a data which is not machine readable, all the downstream process becomes more and more cumbersome. It is not scalable. And as Mr. Srinivasan sir rightly mentioned, 60% of the healthcare is actually not covered by health insurance. Why is it? Because it's not easy to process all the claims in automated fashion, given the way the health insurance companies are actually processing now. So with that, I'll share my screen and then talk about a few slides. I'll begin with a few introduction and set up the context, and then Raghav would take care of, Raghav would come in and then talk about the data, all about data. And in the end, we'll show you a couple of slides where we take a different view of processing the claims. Right? So with that, please allow me to take my, share my screen. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So thanks again for the opportunity, and super excited to be here. And we are very passionate about solving health insurance in a much better way, and simultaneously increase the job market for a certain vertical, which Raghav specializes in and leads, used to lead, and even doing that now also. So which Raghav would explain more as I go for the next few slides. So let's understand. First, I want to give a context on what are the different healthcare services available in India or any part of the world, right? So let's see them. So we have inpatient, where the hospitalization is more than 24 hours. And then you have outpatient radiology, outpatient consultations, labs, prescription medications. Currently in India, there is only cover for inpatient services only, not for much, but few healthcare insurance companies and few companies which are outside the gambit of health insurance are covering outpatient, but not much, I would say. And it is not in the reach of a common person in India, actually, a common Indian citizen in India. And compared to inpatient, as you go down, the healthcare services volumes are much higher. Compared to inpatient, the prescription medications are humongous, actually. And if you follow the approach of processing the claims in inpatient, you can never be able to solve the claims for prescription medication or labs or radiology or consultations. Right? And also want to give you one interesting aspect of US healthcare, taking this opportunity to show you various stats so that you get an idea how this whole dynamics works. So let's say this is actually a picture we have taken from AHIP. AHIP is an organization for a group of health, all the group of health insurance companies in US, Association of Health Insurance Providers, right? And if you see 21% of, let's say this is a $1, you can take it as the premium which is collected by from one person, right? In the $1 health insurance premium, 21% or 21 cents is paid for prescription drugs, right? And then comes the inpatient, and then comes the outpatient. In the end, processing all these things, including administrative costs, which is around 4%, 3% is the profit which is generally made by the insurance companies in the US. And as per our understanding, it actually mimics the other geographies also. Right? And in US, majority of this is covered by insurance. Majority of the healthcare services are provided, also covered by the health insurance companies. And it has been there since the 1990s. And interestingly, the first electronic claim even started in 1990s itself, right? So that is how they advanced. And of course, the US methodology is always automation, 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 because they don't have huge population. They always focus on that automation, right? We can learn a lot and can learn a lot from that and improve our healthcare process also. And compared to that, I just want to give the same stat in India, which is taken from national health accounts. So in India, also similar statistic, 27% of the healthcare services are coming from, healthcare expenditure is coming from prescribed medications. It could be OTCs, it could be prescriptions which the doctor has written. And then 17% is outpatient, and then 34%. And again, insurance is provided only for inpatient, but not for any of these things. Now again, I'll take the one more opportunity to take one more statistic. In India, 64% of the healthcare expense is out of pocket. When I say out of pocket, it is what paid by the person from his pocket, but is not financed by the insurance company or any other subscription services or any other healthcare financiers, right? And of that, 43% is from pharmacy alone. And to quote that national health account, pharmacy is the biggest healthcare burden to Indian households, right? Again, this is not covered by Indian health insurance companies. It is not to share that, I mean, there could be various reasons why this is not covered, but fundamentally what we believe is healthcare claims processing is not efficient. If it is made efficient, then actually possible to cover all these services in the health insurance policy, right? And now I want to set the context to Raghav before he takes over and explain most important aspect of the processing, which is healthcare data generation. So let's understand how healthcare claims are processed in US. Let's say if, the hospital, I'll just give a little more context here. The hospital and the medical coding comes under the gambit of hospital, and the clearinghouse is an independent entity. And the last three are the functions of an insurance company. Okay. And let's start with hospital. Let's say a patient comes to, just like I'll also give a lot of comparison with the Indian health insurance claim processing also, as I explained this important slide, so that you get an idea and then compare both the process. So just like in India, if the patient comes to hospital and the doctor identifies the symptoms and identifies the diagnosis and maybe writes prescription medications or some diagnostic tests and may ask the patient to stay overnight for any surgery or any planned surgery or elective surgery. Right? And once the patient is treated and all the services are performed, so the United States, particularly the CMS, Center for Medicaid and Medicaid Services, just like our Pradhan Mantri Arogya Yojana or PMJ or NHA, CMS is a comparable entity. It mandated every hospital to submit the claim by only filling the medical codes. Right? So that's why the hospital converts all these medical records. Like for example, the patient has for a headache, and the doctor asked for patient come for a stomach ache. The doctor might have asked for do a ultrasound, right? And when the ultrasound is a service which is performed by the hospital, it has to be sent to insurance company for reimbursement to the hospital. So now, if you want to send to the insurance company, you can actually send the paper of the ultrasound scan and that radiologist interpretation. But if you do that, there's a lot of paperwork, and it is again a much more manual approach. But that's why the government of the CMS, what it did was it asked the hospitals to submit only medical records. That's why when you see the medical claim in US, you actually see the ultrasound scan code, which is called CPT, common procedural terminology, and then what is a diagnosis, which is nothing but the symptom I am mentioning here, which is much more complicated, which is Raghav exported. You put the diagnosis code actually, which is a symptom here, that is nothing but stomach pain. So let's say the procedure is ultrasound, then you put a 74532. I'm just giving a representation number. It is a numerical code. We don't mention ultrasound with spelling mistakes, etc. We just clearly mention a numeric code 74532, which is a 5-digit code. That's all you put it. And again, you put a diagnosis code for a stomach ache, which would be like an alphanumerical. You can say A12.345 or A123.45. So it's like alphanumerical code you enter. So when the claim actually comes to the insurance company, you actually see 74532 and A123, nothing else, only these medical codes. Now, since these are machine readable code, you can imagine, right? You don't need a human intervention. Right? But of course, human intervention needed at a certain other part of the claims processing, which I'll explain. This is how actually claim is sent to the health insurance company. But even before sending the claim to the health insurance companies on this fourth step, it passes through clearinghouse. So in India, there are 25 health insurance companies out there and around 25 TPS out there, which can do health. It could be a little plus or minus 1 or 2 could be there, but generally that is a number. But in US, there are 1,000 health insurance companies out there, 40 TPS out there. Just like in India, there are thousands of hospitals. In US also, there are thousands of hospitals out there. when a claim form has to be submitted to insurance company, 1,000 insurance company, because a patient can have any of the insurance policy, right? So you can't have 1,000 healthcare claims, or you can't format it in different format, right, into different health insurance company. That is where this clearinghouse comes into play. It connects thousands of healthcare providers with hundreds of insurance companies, right? Their job is to format it, clean it, validate it in such a format that an insurance company understands this. So this is a very interesting area, and this is where actually the NDHM and NHA are trying to solve it with HIUs, HIPs, consent managers, and health repositories, but that needs to mature a bit. But again, they are also following this FHA or FHIR R4 format to talk between these health insurance providers and health insurance utilizers, right? So that's what's happening in Indian context, but in US much more set format. That is how the claim is submitted. An electronic claim format is submitted from the hospital to the insurance companies. Once it comes to the insurance company, the claim, which is an electronic claim, which is a machine readable format, is just a straightforward comparison. 74532 is in plan or not, because the plan, the healthcare policy, is also configured in this healthcare terminologies, CPT codes, ICD codes, and PCS codes, DRG codes, various codes out there. So whatever should be captured in a medical record, which is very English heavy, will be captured by this medical coding, so that all the downstream process can be automated as much as possible, right? So now again, coming back to claims adjudication, since the policy is also configured in a machine readable format, you don't see very 60-page PDF file or printed file. All our medical codes there also. You just have to compare this 5-digit code with this 5-digit code. It's simple if check. Then if the check is following is correct, then actually you say that it passes the policy checks, right? So that is what happens here. Again, once the policy is, then once the claim is processed for policies checks, you would go for an advanced checks, which is called payment integrity. So payment integrity checks improper payments. It could be because of incorrect claims, or it could be because of fraud, waste, and abuse. I'll give a simple example for everybody to understand, so that you can relate to that problem. So paracetamol, it is taken for fever, right? It is also the first line of defense for COVID fever also. So if somebody is taking paracetamol, they cannot take it more than 4.5 grams in a outpatient setting, which is personally somebody is taking a route of administration orally, right? They cannot take it more than 4.5 grams. They cannot take it 5 days consecutively also. If somebody has an other contraindications like a liver condition, they cannot take it more than 3 consecutive days. So these are the various thousands of rules, which translates to millions of scenarios are configured in this payment integrity. So now once a paracetamol drug is submitted, it goes to all these various checks. So now once the claim is processed, we are 100% sure that all these million scenarios are verified, right? So then actually the payment is made actually. But in sometimes when there is high ticket items like cardiac bypass surgeries, or a huge fractures or orthopedic surgery happens, you actually intercept these claims and then send for manual review on some indications. There's something going on, so that you would be assigned to humans. So then the humans actually will ask for more medical records from the hospital via EMR or electronic medical records. Otherwise, they would never ask these electronic medical records. Till this point, it's all about medical codes and this verifying various rules and scenarios so that it's processed. So payment integrity also uses artificial intelligence or machine learning to verify the claims. So any validations, any verifications in any system can be done in 2 different ways. One, by a simple rule engine. If X equal to this, Y equal to this, then denied. The other is more statistical ways, which also covers AI/ML also. So both are important. You cannot let go for one. Then you're actually, because AI/ML generates a lot of patterns, but these patterns are real, or are there any false positives? You have to verify. Otherwise, it again adds a lot of administrative cost on that, understanding the scenarios. That's why once you understand a scenario, you again configure it in a very black and white rule concept. If this X is there, if procedure is this, diagnosis is this, is it valid or not, right? Because a particular procedure cannot be done on a particular diagnosis. So this black and white rule should be there, so it can be automated much more automated fashion. And once this payment integrity is done, then actually a payment is made to the hospital. A reimbursement is made to the hospital. And after that also a lot of analytics, AI/ML happens after the payment. Since they have generated humongous data, billions of data of data. They know the data is like this since 1990, 1980s. So they have all the data, like what drugs are there, what services are there, what diagnosis are there, all are in machine readable format. Nothing in PDF or scanned copies like in India actually, right? In India, the hospital submits the medical records in a PDF files or scanned reports. Then a human comes here who has a medical degree and then reads the medical records and verifies it. How many scenarios we can remember, right? For example, paracetamol cannot take in 4.5 grams. Similarly, in India, there are 250,000 drugs out there. So this is very inefficient way. So that is where we believe you need to generate the machine readable data and then run automated fashion, and then large scale analytics on this data to identify various scenarios, right? So that's how the claims are processed. With this context, I would give the deck to Raghav. So Raghav would explain more about the context of medical coding. It's just not for claims, it's much more than that. So Raghav.
Yeah, thanks Raj, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Just to continue from where Raj has left. So then how do we actually start it, right? So then this question comes in, like, okay, fine, we've seen how it's done in US. How can we start in India, right? That's the next question which comes in, right? So as we go forward to the next slide, we see that automation actually starts with generating machine readable data, right? That is nothing but with medical codes. So there is a process, as Raj explained, there's a process where we actually create medical codes, and these medical codes are machine readable and very scientific in nature. I'll just show a couple of examples as I go forward. So these are very scientific in nature. And so what is a medical code, right? If I have to ask very basic question, it is nothing but a universal language. You must be aware of WHO, World Health Organization. So they have come up with a code called as ICD, International Classification of Diseases. Now this International Classification of Diseases is what all the countries in the world use it. It's like, just imagine everybody in the world speaking in English, right? So we all speak in same language, and we understand and comprehend, and we write everything in the same way, right? So this is what a medical code is. So let's imagine a chest x-ray one view, if it can be written in multiple ways, right? Maybe I'm a doctor, I'll write chest PA, that's it. Or somebody will write chest 1V, or somebody will write 1V chest. So you can imagine all these things, different variations of these things are taken care by standardizing them into a code, machine readable code, which is nothing but in this case, that the code of the chest x-ray would be 71045, which is chest x-ray one view. And if this is universally understood by anybody, let's say this has been created by AMA, that is American Medical Association. Let it be in Florida, or let it be in California. They all understand this as a universal same language, right? So that is a medical code. Now, once we have this standard code, now we can just imagine what we can do with the data, right? As we go forward, we'll see the next set of stuff, right? And we'll see some of the examples or the languages used in medical insurance world. So I believe everybody must be aware of ICD 10 CM or ICD 10 diagnosis code, which is also prescribed by IRDA for our claims processing. Unfortunately, not many people follow it. So ICD 10 diagnosis code and ICD 10 PCS is what the Indian government has told all the hospitals to submit along with the claims, right? And then there are other code sets like the CPT, which is for the procedure, and there are something called as HCPCS level 2, which is also for the procedure, and there are several codes like that, and there's some groupers which are called as DRG, that is diagnosis related grouper, which is very essential in when we talk about bundled payment. Let's say I want to pay a fixed cost for a particular procedure, let's say appendectomy, right? So we come up with a bundled uh, payment where even that is also defined with the code, right? And with this codes, what the major use cases, what it can solve is, can we process the claim very efficiently without having any leakages, that is payment integrity. Not only that, with the wealth of data, can it be used for any research purposes? Can we see any decision supports that can be developed with this, right? And with this data also, we can also come up with, let's say, product innovations, right? Now I have the wealth of data, we know the utilization patterns of the entire our population. Can we come up with certain innovative product or any customized product, right? So that's also something which will help us. And if you see in the regulation, if you see in the with respect to regulation, the Indian government is also taking strides towards standardizing, and these are some of the IRDA, NHA, NDHM, and all of these things are actually getting they're all moving towards standardizing everything in a universal language, right? And let's move on to the next slide. Yeah. So okay, what is a medical code, right? So when we saw a medical code and we understood that okay, it is a universal language. So what is the structure? Is it random? Is it like just put few things together and say it is like that? No, it is very scientific in nature. Now I'll just take an example of two different codes here. One is PCS and ICD-10, right? If you see on the left side, we have the PCS code where there is a section, and then there is a body system, and then there is a root operation. There is body part, approach, device, and qualifier. Let's look at an example for this. What if I have to code total knee arthroplasty, right? On the right side, they are doing a knee arthroplasty. If this has to be translated into ICD-10 PCS, now we can see the section is medical or surgical, right? So we can not all procedures are surgical interventions, right? There are certain things which are even medical. People also get admitted for medical intervention. They're not getting any kind of surgery done, right? What is a body part? Lower joint. What is the operation? Replacement. What's the body part? In this case, it's a knee joint right side. They are also talking about the laterality. So when I say laterality, is whether if it's left side or right side. And what is the approach? Is it approach? Is the approach open or endoscopic, right? And the device, are they using any device, or is there any qualifier specific to that procedure? So all of this information would be captured in a very scientific way, and we can even just do a query of, let's say, how many knee arthroplasties are done irrespective of open or endoscopic, right? I just have to use the code from O to C and then just query it. Now we can just imagine that can we just query and see which are the ones which are more efficient, which are the ones where there is less readmissions, which are the ones there are no complications. So we can do a lot of stuff like that, right? And similarly, there is also ICD-10 CM, right? And CM actually stands for clinical modification, which the US has extended. And the base version of WHO's ICD-10 is actually the maximum characters is only 5. But in US, they have also extended that by 2 more characters. So those are actually, you can see something called as laterality and an extension. So I'll explain this example. Again, when we see S47 for S42, it means that it is a displaced, it's a category, and it means that displaced transverse fracture. And then what is the etiology? In this case, it is humerus. So we are talking about a specific body part that is in the upper arm, humerus fracture. And then what is the location of it? Is it like humerus? We have the head of it, we have the shaft, we have epiphysis, diaphysis, and so on, right? So which part exactly? So we are talking about the shaft. And again, we have 2 arms, so possibilities that it could be of any of these arms, right? So it is in this case, we are even identifying it is actually on the right arm. Is the patient coming for the first time or second time? What is it, right? So we can even identify if is it initial encounter, subsequent encounter, and is it an open fracture or a closed fracture? So this is the level of information we can capture, right? So this is an example of a PCS code and ICD code. Now I was also talking about something called as bundled procedures, right? So here we are seeing this scenario where Mr. John is discharged to home with IV home health service after treating for osteomyelitis, and he does not have any chronic conditions or any complications. So CC stands for chronic conditions and complications, and MCC stands for major chronic conditions and complications. Now, so does it mean that a person having CC will be paid the same way, or does it mean the person with having MCC, that is major chronic conditions and complications, should all the 3 type of populations? One is the healthy person just has osteomyelitis but no other complications or chronic conditions. One more person has osteomyelitis with complications and or major chronic conditions, or there's one more person who has chronic conditions and, let's say, major complications, right? These 3 people are not the same. right? So when we actually start doing coding, right, with PCS codes and ICD codes, what we come with is something called as DRG. And this is DRG stands for a diagnosis related group. And now you can see on the column called as LOS. LOS stands for length of stay. Not all the three different type of scenarios require different length of stay. That is, length of stay is how long the patient was in the hospital, right? A person without any complication was at 3.6, right? And the patient who was with complication is at 4.9, and the patient who is with LOS of with MCC is at 6.2. Now we can see even the same condition, right, same treatment, based on the patient's profile, the payment and the intensity of treatment would vary. And that's what this grouper would help us, right? And next time when we do, let's say if we have to send it to investigation, should we send uh, let's say this osteomyelitis is with the MCC because it has exceeded the length of stay of 3.6? No, the answer is no, because the patient has chronic conditions and complications, and hence the resources or the extensiveness of the treatment was very different as compared to the person who did not have, right? Again, this is also a code which gives this level of details. As we move forward, and happy to share that for India, in the US there is a code called as NDC, National Drug Code, and in India we have created a code which but there is no code scientifically usable code, machine readable code in India, and we have taken this initiative and probably open it to the public so that this can be used for several use cases. And we call it as ATC IM, though ATC is open source from WHO. So what we have done is we have added more layers of information which would make it super usable, right? So I'll just walk you through this code. So let's say, for example, the example is Atorva 40 mg tablet. So Atorva is nothing but the active ingredient in this case is atorvastatin, which is a statin used for hypercholesterol, right? And calcium is a salt extension. So there are several salts like HCl, sodium, calcium, and other salts. They use it in the it's not an active ingredient, but it's add to stabilize the drug and so on, right? And then there is what is the form of the drug? Is it a tablet? Is it injection? Or what is it? Or is it a capsule, or so on? And what is the route of administration? Is it oral, IV, IM, right? And what is the drug strength? Is it 10 mg, 20 mg, 40 mg? And what is the product name, right? And then who is a manufacturer? So this is the level of things what we'll see at the end. You would have seen that the code we have defined it is this. Now I want to see how much of 40 mg tablets are used in India. Atorvastatin tablets, which is taken orally, 40 mg. All I have to do is I have to query till let's say the 01, the drug strength code, right? Irrespective of the brand, we can actually pull all the data. Now, can I write a rule against it? Let's say atorvastatin, I'll just make it up for just here, right? Let's say atorvastatin, clinically, a person cannot take more than, let's say, 2 grams a day, right? Now we can actually start writing a rule with this code, right? If the code is this, that is atorvastatin is the code, and the daily dose limit is let's say 2 grams, and if anything exceeds that, that can be denied easily, right? Now we are talking about looking at each and every line item of a claim and making the judgment or payment recommendation without anybody looking at it, right? So the code has to be fed, and rest all is automated, and the byproduct what we get is actually the data, right? So this is an example what and we have built this, and slowly we'll make it available for the industry. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, and so we have seen, we've been talking about data, medical codes, and so on, right? How does it help? Actually, the medical coding is actually precursor for any kind of automation. So hence, if you see in developed countries, many developed countries, like even South Africa follows the US methodology, the Middle East follows the US methodology, and Australia has their own coding conventions. The UK has their own coding conventions. And actually medical coding started somewhere in 19th century, where there was a cholera outbreak in London, and they wanted to see how many people are dying and which are the locations and so on, right? And that's where the actual genesis of medical coding started, and then it has evolved into several aspects now. And the application is just not related to insurance. It is also in the US and many developed countries. They actually started using it for population health, which I'll talk in the later section of the session, right? Now we can see these are the different data sets what we have to capture, and what level of details does it give, and what are the applications in the insurance functions, where can I use this data, right? We can use in risk or ILM teams, or we can use in claims adjudication. We can use utilization based on we can also have utilization based checks, or we can even create disease specific products or disease management programs, which is nothing but a subset of population health. And similarly, we can also use a cost comparison. Right now I know a particular chest x-ray, the example which I gave. Now I'll be able to compare apples to apple. Chest x-ray one view, not just chest x-ray one view. What is the cost in, let's say, Fortis, and what's the cost in, let's say, in Vikram Hospital in Bangalore, right? So can we just compare between them, right? Cost comparisons. Can I create benchmarks out of it, right? So if let's say we saw the DRG code, right? So 3.6 is the DRG, 3.6 days is the average, and this is the average cost. And is there, if anything crosses anything beyond that, based on that specific code, can we, look at them and pick them for actually, giving it to a medical, claims reviewer, right? So that they can do a deeper dive and find out if there's anything we can find out. And cost comparison, benchmarking, price negotiations. Can we just go and negotiate a cost of a particular, let's say, a PET scan, whole body PET scan will cost somewhere around 18 to $20,000 in, let's say, in a standalone diagnostic center, which is Medall, and the same would cost around 42 to 47,000 in a big hospital chain, right? Now we are talking the delta of more than 100%, right? So can we use this data, and can we classify them on based on certain rating, and then have better negotiations with them, right? And similarly, there are multiple use cases we can think of. We have the data, and then we can just, it's imagination is our only limitation now. Yeah, can we go next, Raj? Right, as I told, we can use it in auto adjudication, payment integrity, right? And reporting and analytics. Maybe we can use it for audit or pricing or underwriting new products. And also, can we create targeted products, right? Let's say, for example, a large company like Infosys, and whose average population is about, let's say, 30 to 35, right? Probably they would need they'll be most of them would be baby boomers, right? So having a very good maternity plan would be very helpful. Or some company which is where you have a lot of older population, right? Probably they would need more support on chronic conditions, let's say, for example, disease management programs. So that way you can actually curate a product based on the utilization of your population or the kind of population you have, right? So these are the different aspects what we can think of. Yeah, and I want to leave. I want to end this session here with, with my points here with OPD, right? OPD is where the utilization starts, right? If you see any journey or episode of care with the patient's health journey, it always starts with outpatient, right? We go to a doctor, we go for a consultation, we take a prescription, and then if everything is fine, it stops there, or a doctor orders a diagnostic test. If everything is fine, it stops there. Problem, it may require a medical inpatient stay, or it may require a surgical intervention, right? So basically, all of this thing starts with outpatient, and with this data, we can actually start creating a lot of models in terms of predictive analytics, AML models. Use this for creating this structured data for underwriting with respect to the patient's data. And also we can also stratify the patient's profile, and come up with products which are based on the population, right? So yeah, I think so. And this, yeah, Raj, do you want to take it? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Raj,
Okay.
okay.
Right. Yeah. So we're almost in a couple of slides, that's all. So till now we have seen, I understand how healthcare standardization is paramount, right? It is really important. No matter how many algorithms like computer vision, NLP, AI, ML, all are good, but the fundamental thing is to have is medical codes. Then you can actually run many models or AI models on top of it and learn on top of it. For example, we can see that how many people are using paracetamol, how many people are using this 250 mg or 400 mg. Then actually you're helping the machine to do much more than that, much more than what is capable. So if the information is all lying in papers or scanned copies, how much you do OCR using computer vision, it would not scale, right? So that's why we have spoken about a lot about healthcare standardization, why it captures all the information which is required to run all the downstream processing much more automated fashion, and many algorithms can be built. It could help in reducing the cost, it could help in maintaining the health, it could give pointers for the government also to see where the healthcare services are needed, healthcare services are not needed or inefficient. All that can be done with this thing, right? So also what we can do it, for example, we have seen that how codes are used to verify a claim. And I have given a simple example here. A chest ray cannot be done for this particular two diagnosis. This is for anemia and then another particular condition. So you can actually write a simple rule like if it is X-ray and if the diagnosis is an alphanumerical code, then do not deny it, do not support medical necessity. You can imagine I have just shown you one procedure with a couple of diagnoses. There are thousands of codes out there, thousands of diagnoses out there. When you do all these permutations, combinations, it becomes millions of scenarios. If you verify all these things in this automated fashion, then actually it becomes very efficient, first of all, and the cost of the healthcare premiums also can reduce by reducing the fraud, waste, and abuse. All the aspects will come in automatically in these things, right? So I just want to give you this sample. And again, I just want to show you that this is a radiological examination, just single view. This is a level of detail to be there in that particular code. And then you execute this and then verify whether it's correct or not. Similarly, if this can be done by human, the next idea is to generate using AI/ML model, right? The simple syntax is like used to say that this is a denied scenario, right? Once you have this lot of data in this format, and if you identify a particular pattern, which is actually a fraudulent scenario, the machine itself can generate this scenario, right? You don't need to write this. So that is the next step of evaluation in this auto adjudication or payment integrity scenarios. So with this, and then the claim has to come in this format with this medical code, with this diagnosis code. It will deny it, right? This is as simple as auto adjudication, right? You don't need a human to verify these things. So with this, I will end the scenario and give it to Mr. Dosser.
Thank you, Mr. Raj, and thanks, Mr. Raghav, for explaining in detail about the data coding, how important it is, and how the data coding will enable for automation in the healthcare services, and how this can help the insurers to reduce their claim cost, how they can come out with innovative products, how they can price it, based on the risk profile of an individual. Thanks for sharing that. It was very interesting to know that this kind of analysis is now being. Yeah. Okay, now with the availability of data, there's a huge amount of data is available now with people using internet and they are using smartphone and so many bits the health the apps are available and people are really using it. Apart from that, you have a IoT also is being used in a in a big way in a country like India. And looking at the increase in the utilization rate, okay, so what I believe is in the coming years, the data would be the key, right? And the volume of the data is getting generated today is huge. Now, on the top of it, you have the new age technologies like AI, ML is also being used extensively, whether it's in health insurance or in insurance companies. Okay. Now we see in India, they are using the latest technologies. So you also rightly put it, saying that how this data coding and can help in automation. And people are now going in for one level higher than the automation. What is it called? A cognitive automation, or what is called intelligent automation. So what is your view relating to that, and how do you think that in the coming years in healthcare services particularly people will go towards that in
Yeah.
achieving the end-to-end solution, and also not only the within one service sector, in the entire ecosystem. So whether it's an insurer or a health service providers or a diagnostic center or the individual customers, right? So because now there are technology available like a blockchain, which will enable all the parties to come into the same page or the uh, platform, okay, which will enable for collaborating the data from different parties. So make the automation easier, as you said. But what I foresee is probably the data will communicate to each other, and as a result, more and more insight. So insight-driven data will emerge. So this is what we call cognitive intelligence. So how do you see in a healthcare sector this kind of development in the next maybe 5 years?
Okay, yeah, yeah, correct. Yeah. So there are definitely a lot of opportunities out there where AML or cognitive intelligence can be added, right? So one important thing we see is that, I mean, based on my experience, and there are various opportunities out there. I'll talk about one by one. For example, of course, the computer vision nowadays, it's being used for OCR, optical character recognition, right?
Yes,
You
right.
actually submit the claim form and then read and extract the information wherever it is required. Nowadays, people say the OCR is not enough. That's why they are using AI/ML and also deep learning, which is a specialized field of it. Use the same thing to again extract the data. That is also an opportunity they are taking. And once you and also most importantly, when you have to enter this medical codes, capture this medical codes, you can use NLP and AML actually and read the medical record and then enter the codes or extract the codes by itself. That's also one opportunity where even though to begin with the entering medical codes could be manual, in future everything can be extracted automatically also. That's been happening in US, and not to a greater extent, but that will be a great use case where we can use it to reduce the cost of the healthcare
Right.
claims processing. And next thing is the blockchain. Blockchain is very useful nowadays. Very few people are using it for policy contracts. So when you define a policies, you can save it as a contract in blockchain so that it can't be tampered at all, right? There's one use case people are using it. And also you can use it for saving the healthcare data itself or healthcare personal data itself. Let's say went for an x-ray and I have taken this. That information itself can be stored in blockchain so that nobody can tamper it. And even when the insurance company is processing the claim, it is 100% sure that that is not tampered. So they can process the claim with the utmost confidence, right? Those are the few use cases which I can see a lot of development is happening. But again, and the population health management with the IoT devices also is coming, and even Apple is also getting into that world, capturing healthcare data and then sending it on FHIR so that insurance companies can take it and use it as a parametric insurance, and then validating well, this guy's, let's say somebody is running constantly as a constantly very active person, his healthcare insurance should be premium should be lesser than others, right? This kind of encouragement also is happening on the IoT and the device world actually. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Raj, answering that question. So I have another question. I mean, you talked about the coding, no, the importance of medical coding, right? And we in India, we already follow, as per the regulation, the ICD 10 coding, right? And there's also need for procedural coding, or what we call the clinical coding, right? And all the coding has to be done so that the whole data is available for automation. Now, how do you think that this kind of standardization in the medical procedure would help the insurers? How do you think that? In what way that it will help insurers in the new future in pricing new products or in cutting down their cost? So how do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good question. And first thing is what we have seen is creation of data, right? And everybody talks nowadays. Data is the new oil, right? So first we have to create the data, and in terms of healthcare data, so there are several data we can consider it, right? One is the procedure data or the service data. Why is the patient going to the doctor? And what is the doctor doing? That is the your service or procedure data. And then what is he treating, getting treated for? The diagnosis data, right? And so on and so forth. We have multiple data sets what we have, right? So what does this data give us, right? It actually gives us a holistic picture of the utilization of a person, right? So it gives us a very clear picture of what is the healthcare utilization of a person, right? And once this data is captured, it doesn't matter if a pharmacy code or a DRG code or a PCS code or ICD code. Each of this will give their own value, right? So let's say these medical codes are what they're very meaningful, they're not random, they're very scientific and machine readable, right? So using this data, what we can do is, let's say the PCS code or any other code, we can actually start configuring rules which is related to the diagnosis, like the one which we saw, chest X-ray and diagnosis, right? They don't meet the medical necessity. We can deny them. So auto adjudication can happen, right? And then product pricing the product, right? Based on the utilization, what we have gathered, I know that this many arthroplasties are done this year for this employer. So can I readjust the pricing? Right, so that the medical loss ratio for the insurance companies can also go down, right? So we can actually see, based on the utilization and the kind of procedures which are performed, we can actually see the utilization versus the loss, right? And the other important parameters is the payment integrity, right? So not all the claims which are submitted are true, and this we would have seen and heard that all the prices, most of the very common procedures like the labs and pharmacy, they're all inflated, right? The cost is inflated multiple times. Can we avoid this kind of inflations? And where, because if someone has to review all the lines, we can imagine in inpatient claim we can easily have 150 lines, right? Can somebody go and check how much is the cost of each one of them and approve the claim? It's not possible, right? And when we do that, we are also talking about the patient's experience, right? So we cannot hold the patient just because our claims reviewer is sitting and doing the due diligence, right? So there is a very a fine line between what to review and what not to review, right? So that time crunch would come. So with this data, what we can do is actually we can pass all of them through the system, and it takes seconds. Now we don't need that kind of scrutiny to be done by a human, but it the same or above than that machine can do it, right? And with this data, it's not only just it's the payment integrity will save money, right? And automation will increase the efficiency and quality, and pricing the product will also save money, or this thing. And we can also talk about the top line, where can we create curated products, right, for the population, which would actually we can upsell these products to the right there is a demand for certain products with certain population. Can we curate this kind of products and take it to them in the market, right? And there'll be a sect of people who would be excited about buying this, right? So this is what this all of this data, that is procedure data or medical ICD data, all of this data can be used to come up with several solutions.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Raghavendra. I think during your presentation also you touched about how it will help the insurers in coming out with the disease management cover, right? Because you have a data available, you have experiences available. So you can easily analyze how much, whether the experience is positive, or how do we really, what cover is required. We can come out with that. And now health industry is good for the wellness. the wellness is gaining a lot of importance, particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic. People, their concern for health really has gone up. Everybody is really, using the health fitness applications and going for walking and or regular exercises. That we have seen that the health consciousness really has gone up. So how do you see that your analysis would help the health insurer to come out with a wellness insurance products in the Indian market? Or do you have a plan to collaborate with them to
Yeah.
provide that kind of services?
Yes. So as we speak, there are many products which are there, especially in the developed countries, right? So there are many products which are focused on wellness and preventive rather than curing it, right? So so let's talk about the technology perspective, right? Now let's say we have the devices, wearable devices, and there are things where we have telehealth, and there are certain EMRs, electronic medical records, right? All of this data, basically, they're all are essentially capturing data, and this data is all scattered all around, right? With the technology, can we bring all of them together with a unified health record, which even the NDHM is also planning, which is creating a PHR, right? That is personal health record. Now, as a patient, I know what is happening with me. I know what is my demography, that is what's my age, gender, and so on. So I understand what is happening with me. Now imagine this kind of information along with my past medical history, family history, and other stuff, if it's all in the same place. Now let's see what magic it can do to a doctor, right? Because he's so informed about the patient, that the treatment can also be very curated and very personalized to that patient, right? So this would happen. And now we are talking about, even now there is a transition in very developed countries from FFS, that is what we call it as fee for service. You give me a service, I'll pay and I'll get out, right? So now this is getting slowly transitioned into something called as VBC, that is value based care, right? Now the reimbursements of to the insurance companies or to the providers would be based on the outcome of the patient, right? If the outcome is better, the insurance company is happy to pay even more, right? So outcome, so how there are several parameters to define what the outcome is. Like there should not be any readmissions, there should not be any infections, and so on, right? And eventually whatever the patient is getting treated for, that should he's seeking treatment for, that should get cured or should be well managed, right? So these are the ones which are actually in the developed countries gaining a lot of popularity, where it is driven not through FFS model, but value based care model. And this is again gaining very much the popularity. And coming to the wellness section, so I will put it under something called as population health. Again, this is also gaining a lot of traction, and a lot of startups are in this area, even in India, right? So population health, essentially I'll again further divide it into, let's say, something called as preventive healthcare, and the other one is, I will call it as disease management, a broad spectrum, right? What is preventive healthcare is, I am at a risk because of my age and gender. I'll just give a simple example. So let's say female who are above 35 or post menopause are at a high risk of breast cancer, right? And that age is, let's say 35 plus, right? They are at high risk for breast cancer. So then in the US, what they do is they have made it a mandatory stuff, so that everybody has to do a screening mammogram yearly once.
Okay.
So you can actually detect a cancer at an early stage. Not only it benefits the patient of in terms of the health, but also it saves a lot of money, right? The later stage, the outcome, the prognosis of the patient being treated is also less, and the cost is also higher. So can we intervene much early and avoid that? And similarly, people who are above a certain age, and if they are female, they are very high risk to osteoporosis, right? Where their bones become very weak and brittle, and they may fracture very easily, right? So can we do a DEXA scan, right? It's kind of a DEXA, it's kind of a X-ray, which is very focused on the bones. right? So based on this population, can we do a preventive examination on a periodic basis, not like I got a pain and then I visit it, right? Irrespective of any signs and symptoms. And this is what is called as screening examinations. It comes under preventive healthcare, right? So certain populations, certain parameters will fall under this, and then there are care management companies, right? Population management companies who actually run this kind of products, work closely with insurance companies and providers, and say that I will manage your patients well. Let me take care of them, right? So this way the patient is being taken care well and the cost is also contained, right? This is a new paradigm. And the second part which I told, apart from the wellness, is called as disease management. Now in the disease management, we have a lot of chronic conditions which can be controlled. If not controlled, they will come up with other chronic conditions. Let's say somebody who has diabetes or hypertension, if not managed well, most likely that person would get CKD, I mean chronic kidney disease and so on, right? So can we manage this patient so that their disease is not progressing? Can we stall that, or can we delay the progression, right? And can I see all diabetic patient as same? No, we cannot, right? With the data, what we can do is just the way we saw in DRG, right? Can we classify them, risk classify them? Somebody with diabetes not having any kind of complication or any kind of comorbidities, right, would be under certain risk. And somebody who has diabetes and hypertension would be at a certain risk. Because they have diabetes and hypertension, they are high risk for a kidney failure. So then the risk scores will be different. Now based on this, if we just sort them by risk, we know who are the population we have to reach out immediately and manage them well. Maybe their disease management would be much more intense than a person who is not, right, who's not very sick, or is managing it well. So this way what we can do is we can always make sure that the disease does not progress, or the patient does not add more chronic conditions, and eventually giving good lifestyle to the patient and also controlling the cost. So this is how the data can also be used, and the technology can be used to come up with products which are very personalized to an individual, rather than talking about as a whole or generic. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Raho, for explaining it in a great detail. Okay, another interesting question is, now you all know that India also is enacting the data protection regulation, like what we call PDPA, Personal Data Protection Act. Now, since you are involved in the data coding, data management, what challenges do you see once that act becomes enacted? So how do you foresee the challenges? Because you may have to get the consent from the client or the providers, whose our data that you are utilizing. What would be your status? So would your status be a data repository or data owner or a data user? So how do you foresee that situation?
Yeah. So this is a very excellent question, and as data privacy and security is the awareness is increasing. So I believe it's already passed in India that any PHI data, that is personal health information data, or patient identifiable information, PII, should be kept in India. So that is one part of it. And again, of course, there are a lot of guidelines already set. In the US, there is something called as HIPAA, right? Healthcare. Right. There's an act which has been proposed to three functions. One is standardization, privacy, and security, right? Of the security of the data, privacy of the patient, and standardization of all the codes, right? So this kind of acts we foresee is that this kind of regulations would be implemented in India, which would make it a little difficult for all the people who are not very sensitive about data, right? So in US, I'll just tell this, there are basically two entities. One is called as a covered entity, and the other one is called as the business associate. Covered entities are the ones who are either treating the patient or making the payment, which is insurance company or the TPA and clearing house. These are the people who would come under covered entity, and anybody who supports them. Let's say, for example, claim, say somebody, there is an analytic company or there is some population health management company. These organizations would be called as business associates, right? And there are very strict protocols which should be written around the privacy and the security of the data. And
Okay.
in the US, I probably believe that a lot of the Indian startups, Indian founders who have built products for US, especially in the health space, there's something called as high trust, which is again, much more stronger, or maybe bulletproof kind of stuff, right? So these are the kind of acts and policies which should be, I believe, which should be implemented in India. Yeah, Raj, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, the NDHM proposal is very cool. I mean, HIU is there, HIP is there, consent managers are there, repositories are there. And so as a claims processing intermediary, we should have access. Of course, we should apply for consent manager. I mean, sorry, health insurance utilizer, HIU, so that we consume the claims or medical records to process the claim. So as long as it is in place and it is being well followed, I think it is fine. I think that's a good approach. But again, you have to see all the providers and insurance companies. Everybody has to use that and work towards it. And that also enforces standardization in the form of FHI or R4 format. So, which is a format where the electronic claims are shared. And that is also possible. Then that is also being used widely. Then actually healthcare costs reduce a lot.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Raghavendra and Raj, for sharing your thoughts relating to personal data protection. So I just request Director, sir. Sir, do you have any questions, sir, to now?
Just 1 second. No, it was a fascinating program. Both of you, both Mr. Raghavendra and Rajshekhar, covered very, very eloquently on the, automation in health insurance. Just wanted to see some of the challenges for the health insurance industry today is, you spoke about payment integrity, like how do you look at every line item? If you look at a hospitalization bill, sometimes you get sick after seeing the hospitalization bill so long and so cumbersome, and as a result the TPAs or insurers, they just look at some of the items and then they just pass it. Even if they raise some objections, the customer is in the center, get caught between the hospital and the insurance company. So how do we, because this is a major payment, exaggerated payments, inflated payments, outright frauds, lack of payment integrity is the biggest challenge for the Indian health insurance industry. But your solution, really provides, a method of containing it. So my question is, how do you really make the insurance industry use it? Of course, it's a marketing challenge for you, but I'm looking at it from the insurance industry's point of view, because this would really bring in a lot of economies to them. Ultimately, if the claims come down, the premium is going to come down. It will mean more people will take policies. So there are a lot of benefits. So how do you convince the insurance industry to make use of your solution? That's one thing. That's something you must be working on. The second challenge is, how do we make hospitals or TPAs accept this without really putting the customer into any kind of trouble?
Yeah, thanks, sir. Thanks for the question. The first thing is, so when we spoke to the insurance companies in India as a customer providing services, to be honest, they are very excited about it. They want it, no matter what. They see the value in it. And some people are asking us to do historical claim standardization also. They want us to give you 1 year worth of claims and standardize it, make it ready, such that their AI models or analytics keep on working. Otherwise, they don't have any data. The data they have is very saturated. The amount of data you generate actually propels the next generation of AI models or analytics actually. Right? And of course, there is a cost in place. for this medical course. You need to enter this medical course. It could be services angle is there. And one of the articles which is published in Times also, because of the PMJ proposal to introduce medical coding, the job generation, there is a new job market which will come to India, which will help a lot of masses, a lot of people in India to take this take these services and give this to the insurance companies and hospitals so that everybody wins in this thing. That's one of the aspects we have seen in this thing. Right? The other thing, coming back to the hospital thing, so just like in US, an act is passed, HIPAA, right? They are supposed to standardize the claims, whether it could be submitting the claims or for even electronic medical records for the patient in their hospital. So that if it is not there, then the onus of standardization or medical codes comes on the insurance companies. That's why they're a little reluctant now to take our service, if you ask me. That is one reason. The question is, the hospitals should do it. Why should we do it, right? But some companies are actually open and they want to do it because there's no other way for them. This is from our limited experience. I mean, you know much more about us. So when we conversed with insurance companies, that's what we learned actually.
Thank you. But I must really compliment both of you. I think it's a fantastic solution you brought in, and hope that the insurance industry makes use of it and get benefited. Dr. Das, I think.
Yeah. So thank you. Just one last question. I mean, we'll just picked up some of the questions from the audience side. So there's a question which says that do we have in your product, have you also taken into account the other alternative medicines like Ayush or the other branch of Unani or other branch of treatment which are available in India? So have you also considered those kind of treatments into your medical coding?
Yeah, the short answer is no. The reason is, so all of this, the rules what we talk about, the current rules what we talk about should be backed, like Srinivasan sir told. There should not be a conflict between the provider and the patient, right? And if there is a conflict, what happens is, like, I mean, for example, if I say a particular drug cannot be prescribed beyond certain things, now the doctor is also referring from the same place where we are referring the information from, right? So there is no conflict between us, me and the doctor has to agree it, right? So whatever we do, it has to be well documented in the literatures, and as we go forward, probably we may add it, the alternative medicine. And just to go a little beyond, in the US, they have already started adding chiropractic and naturopathy and other stuff. So this will also slowly come up, and probably currently we are focusing on the allopathy medicine. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Raghavendra, and thank you, Mr. Rajsekhar. Yeah, it was a wonderful interactions and a very interesting topic. You shared your experience in that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for a wonderful opportunity, and we're very glad to be associated here and then talk about what we learned and experienced over the years. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Das sir. Thank you, Srinivas sir, and Shobha from IIA. It was great pleasure talking here. Looking forward for more such sessions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. All the best.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, bye.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, audience. Who really who were very actively listening to conversations and also posted a lot of interesting questions. Sir, unmute.
305 participants.
Oh, okay.
Wow, that's nice.
Great.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.